I got a 1 minute warning, directors.
Oh, so I got 1 minute to leave?
1 minute.
Do we have a quorum? We do.
We have a quorum. We have a quorum, directors. Good afternoon. Strathcona Regional District Board meeting for July the 13th. I'd like to acknowledge we are on the Lakwatak speaking people territory. I have confirmation of quorum. Call the meeting to order. Adoption of public agenda, please.
Move the adoption of the public agenda with the addition of an addenda item called Emergency Operations Center Grant Award.
Second.
I believe it's already on there.
I just got the email from Tom, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's already on there, Director Lee.
Okay, so move adoption of the agenda.
Okay, seconder.
Second.
Cornfield, thank you. Anything else? I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Oh. What's that?
It's a letter from the MIRR.
So you want it added as correspondence? New business?
Or there was something about letter that.
Put your button on, Director Cornfield.
There was one item on mirror in the letter that was going to be sent off. So I think it could fit under that.
I think just bring it up when that report comes up.
Okay,
Just bring up that,
thank
okay.
you.
Okay, I'll call question on the agenda. Is anyone opposed? Carried. And just to let everybody know, we have Director Cornfield, Director Evans, and myself in the boardroom, and staff, of course. Petition delegations, we have Jill Brocklehurst Booth and Colette Ordano Saunders here to make a presentation on the Center for Inspired Living campaign. Welcome, ladies, and as per usual, we have a time of 10 minutes. Welcome and go ahead.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Jill Brocklehurst Booth, and this is Colette Ordano, and we're from the Center for Inspired Living here in Campbell River. So we're here to have you imagine a place that supports and nurtures people through life-changing tools and experiences, something that's accessible daily, that's open to everyone, public use without barriers, not just for those who can pay a lot of money or travel far, but a retreat center that's accessible and close to town. So I want you to imagine offering empowerment to all of the people in our region. Imagine if our communities were populated with these inspired people and what is possible. How does a community benefit from these people? As you probably know, people feel their sense of purpose and are passionate about making a difference. They all add exponentially to our communities. They're invaluable. Perhaps think about people in your community that are empowered and doing good work. people like Nikki Watts, for instance. And in her spare time, after work and family life, she devotes all her hours to animals and pets, and she returns them back to their home. Or maybe cavers who become surveyors and who protect bats and end up protecting local lands. These are activities we could have never planned, but instead were inspired through the lives of people who felt their passion and had the fortitude to actually then put it into action. So what does it take to be this kind of person? Let me tell you about Mary Lou. When we first met Mary Lou, she couldn't walk a flight of stairs to get to our classes. In fact, she was suffering from a lot of pain. As you can see in the slide, she had a lot of different physical assists she needed to put on every day. She was hopeless, depressed, and the doctors told her it was going to be a very short time before she was in a wheelchair and then had to start a life on disability. Mary Lou started participating in ground floor events at our center, and she learned transformational ways of being. Determined to learn more, she had enough tools for her trajectory, and she completely changed her life. No longer does Mary Lou need medication or physical assistance. In fact, Mary Lou cycled to Victoria to raise money for Grandmothers to Grandmothers for Africa. She's a stellar example of a Campbell River volunteer, and she performs acts of service, random acts of kindness all over the city, and that still includes helping elders and others in need. An amazing part of Campbell River. But then think for a moment, what if there weren't any of these people? No inspired people. No one that had the tools to do good works. What if we removed all of the nonprofits and all of the charities, all of the passionate people desiring to make a difference in our community? What if they didn't exist? What would our communities look like then? So here's what we want to do. We envision a piece of land that is big enough with enough potential so we can make a bigger impact. We're going to set the stage for a variety of different ways in which people can be reached and can be empowered. An opportunity for people to connect back to the land. And we know that nature assists in connecting everyone back to themselves, learning about their true passions and their desires. Isn't that why we live here? That's why I do. On this land, we will continue to offer a variety of tools to steer individuals on their personal life transformational path. What if our communities were populated not with just a few outstanding people, but actually hundreds of empowered, passionate individuals? This is what we're asking. We know we can pull this off. Some of you have known me for a long time, and I think we have a really great track record of success. I started this charity 19 years ago from nothing in a place I wasn't even sure it belonged. It has grown to a thriving organization that it is today, with capable membership. The center quickly outgrew the building we bought and then sold, and Colette here, our operations manager, and I, we're on a mission to change more lives. We want to help more people make a difference in our community. So we're asking for a piece of land. We're asking the regional district to be a part of this venture. And maybe when you think about it, you already have the perfect location that's waiting for something like this and a group like ours. Any questions?
Great, thank you very much. Do I have any questions from directors? Director Evans?
There we go. Thanks, Steve. Thank you for the presentation. Just a couple questions. When you sold the building, could you just talk about when that was? And then do you have on your website sort of a vision plan or any more detailed concept developed yet? Thank you.
Yeah, so we sold our building in February, and we have a page on our website dedicated to this idea, and also for those in the room, you have our original submission, which has a little bit more detail in it, and that plus the brochure that we've included will be attached to the minutes for everybody that's remotely to look at.
Thank you. I have Director Anderson.
Thank you. Thank you for your passion. There's Hollyhock is a facility on Cortez that does some of what you're speaking to, and I'm just aware of the vastness of our region, and I'm wondering if you have any sort of area within the region that you would prefer to work in. Would you prefer to be easily accessible from Campbell River and the outskirts thereof, or on an island or on the west coast? As you know, our region is very diverse and very large. And the regional district doesn't really of itself, to my knowledge, own sort of a land bank. That'd be wonderful if we did, which doesn't mean that we can't, support creative thinking, but it would help to know whereabouts you would like to locate.
Yeah, great question. Thank you. One of my passions is actually to have it accessible. So we've been thinking 20 minutes from the central part of Campbell River would be the ultimate location. If it's any further than that, then it's too far. Then it becomes like our distant retreat centers that already exist in our area as well as south of here. And the idea too of compared to a place like Hollyhock that you mentioned, that place is a for-profit and it's designed, it brings people in through tourism and from afar, but they're not dedicated to the local people. We've often tried to collaborate with them, and their interest is to bring people from afar to their location. So we have looked a little bit north of town. We've looked south of town as well. As soon as we go across Oyster River, I believe, then we're into the Comox Regional District, so we prefer to be in this regional district so that it's accessible to Campbell River. Is there anything I missed? Yeah, mostly it's about, and because we're a charity, we're passionate about making this available to everyone. One of the barriers to places like Hollyhock is that it's extremely expensive. So we offer virtually the exact same activities that they offer, but from a place that is affordable for all people because we're a charity.
Excellent, thank you. Any further questions from directors? Don't see any hands up. Director Cornfield.
Thanks for your presentation. Do you have audited financial statements?
Yes, we do.
And you're a registered charity?
Yes, we are.
So you can issue tax receipts?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Looking for land in our district is really difficult as well. It's any tracts of land that are large are under the Agriculture Land Reserve, which doesn't allow us to do a retreat. It has to be a farm. And so the reason our initiative of coming to the Strathcona Regional District is to help perhaps negotiate with places like Mosaic to look at lands that we might be able to put into some zoning that would work for our retreat. And then we've had people say, well, then what you need is commercial land. Well, then we're back to a brick and mortar building that's in town that then takes us out of the natural habitat. So those are considerations.
Excellent, thank you. Any further questions? I'm just going to add one in, Director Anderson, about, we don't have a land bank type of thing, I think was the wording. So just the staff, we don't have any possession of land within the regional district?
No, Mr. Chair, other than parks, we don't.
Okay. Any further questions? Director Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. apologies, I got into this meeting late due to technical difficulties, but I'd just like to speak on their behalf. Jill and Colette have had a retreat in Tassus a couple of years ago, and I found them to be excellent people to work with. They did a cleanup in our community at our farm, Pete's Farm, as we call it. And they left the place in better condition than they found it. And I did attend some of their sessions, and I think they're a positive asset to any community that they would join. So I'm in favor of this.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Okay, don't see any further questions, so I'm gonna call motion to receive the presentation.
Move receipt.
Director Evans,
Second.
Director Cornfield. I'll call question. Anyone opposed? See none carried. And any further action? Don't see any hands up. So on that, I thank you very much for your time today. Moving along in the agenda, item E, adoption of the minutes for the regional board meeting for June 29th.
Move adoption.
Second.
Cornfield and Evans. Any errors, omissions? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Any business arising? Seeing none, no public considerations, no notice of motion. Chair, I don't have nothing verbally today. Committee reports, committee chair reports, First Nations Relations Committee report. Motion to receive the report? The minutes, sorry?
Move receipt.
Thank you,
Wally.
Director Wally, seconder.
Second.
Director Cornfield.
Mr. Chair, could we see the agenda on the screen, please?
Yep, you betcha. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Carried. Next item, Municipal Service Committee, the draft minutes for the June 29th meeting. Motion received. Director Evans, seconder.
Second.
Director Cornfield. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Staff reports. First one, active transportation planning project. Motion to receive the report from the CEO.
Move receipt.
Director Wally, seconder.
Second.
Cornfield. And I'll go to the CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Annika will speak to this.
Go.
Thank you through the chair to the board. This is further to the presentation that took place at the Electoral Area Services Committee with respect to the Cortez Island Active Transportation Planning Research and Data Collection Project. That's a handful. That was completed as a result of some funding that we received from UBCM for $20,000. The study initially launched early in 2022 and was initially started with a survey, some virtual engagement sessions with key stakeholders, also some in-person workshops on Cortez Island, as well as a community lunch with the Klahoose First Nations. The report is now complete and offered as an attachment to the board. What this project did do is basically provide data with respect to active transportation barriers on Cortez and identified a number of locations of concern throughout Cortez, as well as connectivity through the main village areas, as well as connecting through to Klahoose. The conclusions of the report and most of the community interest with respect to that indicates a desire for an improvement to safety throughout both the pedestrian and cycling corridors on Cortez Island. What this report will do is, identify those areas of concern and some areas of where we could do improvements and better provide us an ability for future grant funding projects for more implementation to mitigate these concerns throughout Cortez Island. As well, the information contained in this report will be included in an update to the Cortez Island Official Community Plan and put us in a better strategic position when it comes to transportation policies. Thank you.
Great, then. Thank you, Aniko. Any questions? Director Anderson?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for this. We did, if my memory serves me correct, we did receive this at East and have a bit of a discussion, and I've had another chance to read it since. I'm certainly grateful for the report, but I think it falls a little bit short in outlining the real lack of any kind of active transportation infrastructure whatsoever, even in so much as not addressing the Minister of Highways is not addressing critical corners that are, blind corners with no shoulders, et cetera, for pedestrians and even more so cyclists. And so there's certainly a map in that study that shows that, but just by reading it, it doesn't sound as dire as it really is. And there are really significant barriers for people getting around just because of the distances. But now that electric bikes are more common, the distances are becoming less of an impediment. It's really about the side of the road safety and traffic safety. So I really would have liked to see that highlighted a little bit more. But what I would love to see happen out of this is the regional district liaise with the Ministry of Highways. And I'm just asking staff here in this discussion portion about whether you need direction from the board or whether there would be something coming back from staff around ideal next directions, because the discussions we've had, myself and staff, is that sort of the logical next step is potentially looking at a feasibility to develop some side of the road, pedestrian bike paths, and that would be great. Very costly, and not quite sure where that would come from. But it seems like one of the immediate, much lower barrier things we could do is improve the safety on some of the real blind corners that this report has highlighted, especially around the lakes. And that's just an advocacy piece as far as I can tell. So is that something that our staff would naturally do? Or if not, I would happily move that here, that staff be directed, or that we write a letter to the Ministry of Highways asking that they look at the viability of widening some shoulders at the key pinch points that this study has identified. So any response from staff on that would be warmly appreciated.
Okay, thank you. And the CEO?
Mr. Chair, so I would prefer a motion if that was the direction. Happy to follow a motion.
Okay, thank you. So maybe after receipt, Director Anderson?
Oh, okay, I happily do that. And just a question, I guess, at the board, the same one that I asked at EASC, is what if anything, would staff naturally do with this report in the absence of specific board direction?
Thank you through the chair to the director. As indicated earlier, the information contained in this report will be included in future planning sessions on Cortez, as well as implemented through our OCP update and transportation policies contained therein. Further, this report puts us, as I stated again earlier, in a better position when those grant opportunities come forward for us to be able to do improvements throughout Cortez, or focus on specific areas that were highlighted through the report and through the information sessions. So this does provide us a good placeholder for when those opportunities do arise.
Okay, so an OCP, that might be a decade or so away. Other planning sessions? I don't know what other kind of planning sessions there might be, or what other realistic grant opportunities there would be now that we have this report. So it seems, it's not super concrete, I must say, and perhaps I could look forward to speaking with staff more specifically about this. But I would happily make a motion after receipt, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. And Director Cornfield?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Aniko. Is this the final finished product? Do we also get the statement that shows the financial disposition of the grant?
Sorry, through the chair, for the board?
Yeah.
We could provide that.
Okay. And then one thing I noticed, and I don't go over to Cortez very often, but I didn't see any traffic data there. Is there a lot of traffic on the roads on Cortez? It doesn't strike me as there would be pretty much all locals.
Thank you through the chair. The key of this report was based on safety, not traffic numbers. So I don't believe that they did a traffic assessment with respect to the number of vehicles traveling on the roadways. What the focus was on is areas where active transportation, where there was active transportation potential and where those concerns were located. They did, as the Area B director indicated, identify areas that were of key concern with respect to safety, corners and that sort of thing, but they didn't focus on traffic per se.
Okay, and the reason that I asked that is because when I read through the report, walking on Cortez shows a response rate of 88% that are very safe, or feel very safe, or mostly safe. That I begin to wonder about the vehicle question. That's why I asked, where is the traffic numbers? For one person to say it's not safe, but the study doesn't bear that out, for at least for walking, which would indicate one thing. In cycling, it's a little different. 38% were very or mostly safe, or 35% rather, and then there was 8% were neutral. So what was missing to me was how many people actually do that. When you read some of the comments as to why not, it was distances or topography. It was hard to get sort of a sense of how urgent the problem is. And without any vehicle data, you know, if you're riding a bike down a road and on Dogwood, say, it's uncomfortable and people don't feel safe. On the other hand, if you get 5 vehicles an hour, it's generally not a problem unless there's speed or other things. So not disputing that the pinch points are for sure, but just wanted to, I mean, when you make decisions, should be based on a complete set of information, including how many vehicles they are, so you can properly prioritize. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Cornfield. And I've got Director Abram. You're still muted, Jim.
Charlie, just wanted to say that you should get out and about more often on the islands. The pinch points that are talked about are extensive. They're not just little short hops, they're whole distances along roads. We have exactly the same problem on Quadra Island. I applaud the director from Cortez for doing the study, for getting those figures. You're right, Charlie, there could be more information on traffic volumes that would help. But the dangers, you know, this is a daily conversation point on Quadra Island, and we have a number of committees. We have the ICANN, is the acronym, Transportation Committee set up, which is working almost constantly on this problem. We have the Safety Committee, which is working on this problem almost all the time. People complaining about the fact there are no shoulders. All of those corners are blind corners. You can't see around them. And that's not just for bikes or passenger or people. It's for cars and emergency vehicles. You can't see around corners. So that's not safe. It's not a good situation. And in the end, you know, this is going to come down to, it's going to be another report that goes forward. It may go into an OCP that we want these things. We have to have these things. But in the end, it's going to be who's going to pay for them. And in my experience, it has been with Ministry of Transportation and Highways, continual argument, even though it's their right of way. In most cases, it's their right of way in their gazetted area. They are not interested in providing what they call bike lanes. They're not bike lanes, they're shoulders. even if you just call them shoulders, that's all they need. But they're going to be expensive to build. So, I wish Director Anderson the best of luck in her meetings with planning department and the ministry in making this happen, and would like to see it happen for Quadra Island also.
Okay,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Director Abram. And Director Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since the regional district is not responsible for transportation under their jurisdiction, it's Ministry of Transportation. I have always advocated for people who contact me regarding transportation issues to the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. And recently, I forwarded comments from the public about lack of shoulders on Glenmore Road near Discovery Foods and the need to fill in the potholes and address some safety issues there. And within about 3 weeks, they fixed the problems, and most of the problems, they fixed them, paved the shoulders and did the work. Regional district doesn't own a shovel. You can put all the words into your OCP that you want, but you don't have the ability to deliver paving side shoulders or anything like that. It's MOTI that needs to agree to do those things, lower speed limits or whatever needs to be done. And they just need to know. And I found MOTI to be very cooperative. I mean, I got a letter of thanks from Discovery Foods for forwarding concerns and getting the thing fixed in a short period of time, rather than going through all of this palaver of reports and OCP amendments and things that don't really deliver on what people need. So I really don't think we should be delving into transportation. It's MOTI that's responsible for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director Anderson, did you have another comment, or are you ready for your motion?
I had another comment, and that was just to say that while Director Cornfield was speaking, I heard 5 cars go by here, and I live in the not busy part of Cortez, so it's certainly not locals. The ferry is completely jammed in the summer, and our population doubles or triples or quadruples, who knows, but it goes up by a lot in the summer. And I completely concur with Director Lee. Absolutely, it's not our jurisdiction, but it is our responsibility to, when we do these kinds of reports, to forward them on to the organizations that do have the authority and the responsibility in the budget, and to advocate for that. And so great that directors do that, and if staff and the board can support that. I've certainly met with highways on multiple occasions here around these pinch points and looked at, getting an excavator, blasting, or whatever it may be, and they've been open to it, but I've not been persistent enough or persuasive enough. And so this kind of report might add to that. So I do have a proposed motion in the chat after receipt, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, discussion? Okay, I'll call question on receipt. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And Director Anderson?
Thank you. That staff be directed to advocate to MOTI that improvements be made to identified pinch points of safety concern, I guess it's on Cortez Island, especially pertaining to cycling, and further that the SRD board forward this report to MOTI and advocate for the same.
Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Director Lee.
Second.
Director Lee, thank you. Any further discussion? I'll call question on the motion now. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2, City of Campbell River Development Permit, or Development Proposal Referral. Motion received, report to CEO.
So moved.
Cornfield, seconder, Evans, and I'll go CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Annika will speak to this as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, through the chair to the board. The SRD has received a referral from the City of Campbell River for a subdivision application at Midport Road in Campbell River over a industrial zoned parcel. The subdivision is to create 9 additional lots. which will remain zoned industrial 2 and allow for those said uses to continue. The parcel is located adjacent to electoral area A, bordering a very small portion at Duncan Bay Road. The area is also within a development permit area for comprehensive development and ditch development permits, and will further require development permits and environmentally sensitive areas reports as part of any future development. The application does comply with the City of Campbell River's zoning and OCP, and therefore is limited to just a subdivision application. And at this time, the SRD staff has not identified any areas of concern or notations as part of the application, and has provided a recommendation to the board advising the City of Campbell River that we have no concerns as part of the application. Thank you.
Great, thank you. On receipt? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item B,
I'll move B.
Adams and Cornfield. Any discussion? Seeing none. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 3, Clues First Nation Treaty Process. Motion received report from the CEO.
Move receipt.
Wally and Cornfield, and I'll go CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a draft letter that the staff have prepared with the assistance of the First Nations Relations Committee members for the board's review and consideration, and happy to entertain any comments.
There you go. On receipt. Director Anderson.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if staff has confirmed with the ministry that this indeed was Klahoose and that there wasn't some mix-up between nations. I have some information that I can't really speak to, but I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't some kind of error before we send this letter.
Mr. Chair, I believe the correspondence from MER came and it referred to Klahoose, so I'm not certain about any miscommunication.
No, I'm certainly aware of that. I just wonder if it wasn't perhaps an error on the ministry's part in their communication, just whether that could be double checked before we send our letter.
If that's the board's will, staff are happy to do that. I don't know it would inspire double checking. It is the correspondence specifically referred to Klahoose, and that's what the First Nations Relations Committee has responded with the draft letter. But if the board wants us to double check on that, I have no idea what would inspire an error in the letter though, but happy to take direction.
Okay. Director Cornfield.
Yes, I don't think it's in error on Klahoose. It's very clear in the correspondence. My concern, when the original motion was first made, I believe it was Director Abram and myself on it, that we're not being kept apprised, and says under that, we stressed the part about the community charter. We're recognized as a level of government, but they don't even treat us as much as a stakeholder, and consequently stuff happens and carries on. I just received a letter that we had dealt with at the city, but it was in my mail, and it was a registered letter from Muir, saying that, oh, they're doing this with Wewakam and Quequa, and yeah, it's, you're getting information after the fact. There's no maps, there's no indication of anything. The regional district has a much broader scope of both the land jurisdiction. I know that the electoral area director for Quadra and the coast, had some very serious concerns around land disposition when it comes to rivers and power projects and things like that, but we're not getting any information and we're not being involved. And we're not a stakeholder. We are a level of government and should be treated as such. So I had a little concern as to, it makes reference to Director Cornfield, and I think it should be more focused on the regional district. In other words, the regional district did not, did not receive any information. And so, why I don't care that my name is in there, I don't think that that's the focus. The focus should be on the fact that we're not just stakeholders. And so, just my thoughts there, and focus on the legitimacy of the local government.
Okay, thank you. And we're still on receipt of the report. Director Abram? You're muted, Jim.
I keep trying to be good and mute myself, but I keep forgetting.
You're doing good, you are.
I am. I'm just forgetting to unmute. Okay, so I have to agree completely with Director Cornfield on the conversations that we've had over the last year or two, the conversations we've had with MER and the conversations we've had with First Nations. But, you know, for Director Cornfield to bring forward a letter today that is addressed to him, because he's the representative for the Klahoose TAC, that's fine, but I don't object to that. I just think that it shows that Director Cornfield is the appointee of the SRD for that purpose as the local government representative. We are a bona fide level of government, recognized page 1 in the community charter. I was there, I helped write it. So, if the government isn't going to read its own documents, then we're in trouble. I think that, whatever that letter says in that Director Cornfield has received, I think there needs to be a response either from him directly or from the chair of the board to let them know that the appointee is Director Cornfield for the SRD, and please get it right in the future. And just go from there. But this letter, as it stands, I believe the letter, we talked about it at the First Nations committee, and I think everybody was okay with it. The only thing we did was change it from going to staff to going to the ministers, copied to the staff. And I think that was the appropriate protocol to follow, and we're following it. So I think it's time to just vote on it. Let's get it out there.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on the CEO's report? Seeing none, I'll call question on receipt. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And item B, that letter attached to July 4th, 2022 report from the CAO regarding Inclusive First Nations treaty negotiations be approved.
So moved. Abram.
Second.
Second by Wally. Any further discussion? Oh, should we copy the Inclusive First Nations? Just a thought? No? Okay.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. I didn't hear your question, Brad.
It was just a thought. Should we copy the clues? But CEO says no. CEO?
Mr. Chair, so we went through the direction of the letter and the CC list, and the First Nations, there wasn't a recommendation to include first the Klahoose.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I don't see any further discussion. So on item B, I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 4, municipal participation in land use planning Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Evans,
Second.
Cornfield, anything to add, CO?
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair?
On receipt? Director Abram on receipt?
No, sorry, not
Okay.
on receipt.
Okay, thank you. On receipt, then I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item B, motion that the board include for discussion in 2023 financial and strategic initiative planning and development of regional growth management plan.
So moved.
Cornfield, seconder. Evans, discussion, Director Abram.
Yeah, I've read the report and well written as always. I'm just wondering, there's some questions that come up from it. Regional growth strategy, I believe it's called. It's called a growth management plan, but I think the official term, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, it's regional growth strategy is the legislation. I'm not quite sure what it means or what it would mean, and maybe that's what the discussion or a report back or whatever would bring us. But at this point, I'm not quite sure why we would do it for the entire regional district to have a regional growth management plan. And the reason that I say that is because people live in different areas of the regional district for their distinct features. So, you know, those folks that live where they live, they don't necessarily want one homogeneous area to live in. They want Cayucot for Cayucot, and they want Cortez for Cortez, and Sayward for Sayward, and Campbell River for Campbell River. So it seems that to try and lump them all together under one set of rules or regulations or policies or whatever it's kind of taking away the freedom of those people moving to where they move and putting up with what they put up with, because it's difficult living in the outer areas. It's not a piece of cake. I also don't understand, like the report or the recommendation starts at the beginning, and then it goes on to the background with copy written across each page, which I believe were from a previous municipal services committee report to them. Maybe it was to the board, I don't remember. But I guess the question that came up was the items that were listed in that report, maybe they're not appropriate to even be talking about. Tell me if I'm wrong, but if we are going to talk about them, I'm just wondering why some of the issues would be dealt with generally by all areas when they only specifically relate to one specific area. So why would all areas have to confirm that it's okay for that area to do it? Whatever the item may be, I'm not sure.
Okay, so
But there was a whole list of things there that was in the report. So I'm just concerned, and also I have the question of, if this regional plan went through, does that mean that, okay, the municipal areas would have some input into the electoral areas, but would the electoral areas also have input into the municipalities? And if that's the case, well, what do the municipalities feel about that? Because that would mean, you know, Cortez, Quadra, places like that would be, I'll call it meddling, just for lack of a better word, in the affairs of, say, Sayward or Cayucot or Zabelis or whatever. And I don't feel that's appropriate.
Okay.
So if we're going to look at this in the 2023 financial and strategic initiative planning process. Okay, fine. I just hope that we can have the discussion to be very, very detailed and comprehensive so that we really know what we're talking about when we're talking about each item.
Okay, thank you, and I think you're exactly right, that's what it's for, but I'll let the CEO go.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll attempt to answer part A of that. Part B, I don't understand at all, and I can't answer that. But I will speak from someone who's worked for 4 of the 27 regional districts in the province, and don't quote me on this, but I'd be surprised if we're not the only one or one of very, very few that does not have a regional growth management plan in the regional district. So we're unique in that aspect. There's many, many benefits, and there's reasons why it's in the Local Government Act. It's not a requirement, but I actually thought it was because so many do it without exception beyond us. Anyways, regional growth management plans look at a lot of things. They don't focus on controlling individual areas. They're high-level documents that look at land use, tourism, transportation, economic development, tourism in a region. They don't take away power authority in local areas. If that was the case, you wouldn't find regional districts do it. They all support them. Again, direction from the Municipal Services Committee was that it's something that we should entertain, look at as part of financial planning and strategic initiatives, and get into greater detail of what a regional growth management plan would look like.
Thank you, CEO. And Director Cornfield? No? Okay, sorry, I thought that you had your hand up. Director Anderson? Oh, sorry. Okay, go ahead, Director Cornfield. Put your button on.
Gotta get this right. I think just like we reviewed the Comox Valley Regional District's growth management strategy, they're required to send it to adjacent ones for where they see things happening and growing that can have a lot of impact on other people and other things. I think it's important that we have that discussion, financial plan on a growth strategy. I was pleased because I assumed that it was all part and parcel of the participation on land use planning. So thank you for the clarity there on regional growth is part 13, which is different from the part 14. And I think it's important to have a look at where there is pressures, because they create pressures for, if you want to look at active transportation. As places grow and change, there's all kinds of items that we all should be aware of when we look to the future. So,
okay, thank you.
I certainly support it anyway.
Thank you, Director Cornfield. And Director Anderson and Lee. Director Anderson.
Thank you. I feel a bit uncomfortable how this has come to be, because it seems like it would affect the rural areas significantly more than the urban areas, but it came through discussion from the urban areas exclusively. So that just leaves an odd taste in one's mouth. I think we have so many planning documents that are so desperately out of date that are really our core planning documents. And my experience is we don't do a whole lot with the ones that we have. I don't think that this is something that I would put as a priority on the new board going forward, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Director Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll put my camera on here. I have observed the regional growth management strategy and how it rolled out in the Comox Valley. I attend a lot of their board meetings, and what I've found is that where they did put growth nodes, like at Saratoga, they didn't have the required water to service the growth that they put into the plan. Conversely, they had developers trying to put growth into places like Stoughton Falls, which were highly prized by the local community and way, way far away from any infrastructure. And they went to court like 3 times at least, and the director had to absent himself from voting on his own area because they were threatening to sue if they didn't get included in the growth plan. The CBRD held fast on the growth plan and did not include them because they didn't have to under the statements in the plan. But it was, I think, a big pain in the neck, to be honest. I don't think it worked out for Saratoga. I don't think it worked out for Stoughton. And it just seems to inspire land developers, you know, that buy up forestry and farmland and try to convert it into little tiny postage stamp parcels without any infrastructure. I don't agree. I think we should be planning through our electoral areas and planning carefully and evolving, not sudden, you know, not a sudden revolution of how we're going to have the municipalities, you know, inflict their growth ideas onto the rural areas because they don't know. They've not been involved in the rural areas land use planning for many years. I don't think it's the time to do this either.
Okay, thank you. And Director Adams.
Thank you. And I think Director Lee brings up a really valid point, and it is a reflection on how our regional district is different from other regional districts. And that is when we're talking about infrastructure, whether it be water or sewer or roads or those types of things, the only areas within the Strathcona Regional District that would be and should be involved is Area D and potentially Sayward if it's getting close to the southern boundary, but there hasn't been any requirement for that. For Quadra and Cortez, it is not feasible or realistic to even consider that infrastructure connections. So we've got a little bit difference of both, but it's really important to not for the municipalities to be involved in the land use planning for the electoral areas, but they do need to be aware and involved when it comes to the potential long-term impacts on infrastructure that is going to have to be supplied from the municipality. Unless you're going to build a standalone sewer and water facility in the electoral area, and those are cost prohibitive. The example of what's going on south of the Oyster River and the impacts on the not only that water system that's coming from us isn't going to be sufficient to be able to serve the Saratoga area, and that should be an issue for the Comox Valley Regional District, not being dependent on the Strathcona Regional District to resolve their infrastructure issues. So I think there's value in having the discussion, but it certainly isn't a case of the municipalities being involved in land use in the electoral areas, but just what the unintended consequences and potential impact will be on the requests or expectations for infrastructure support. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Adams. And Director Colburn.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm absolutely in support of this, and though I do understand maybe some of the wording is leaving, you know, an uncomfortable feeling with electoral areas. My view on this, much the same as Director Adams, is from service provision point of view. Also, you know, taking into account and preparing the possibility for nations who want to be involved in this to provide services and have their economic development be realized and supported through the regional district. There's also can be in certain cases environmental considerations that that do affect the municipalities and the constituents therein. So understanding what's going on in the area, being a part of that, encouraging people to be out and in our massive and beautiful regional district, and having that knowledge of maybe if people are prepared to move to, you know, a more rural type area that maybe isn't contained within a municipality, having at least an understanding of and something to refer them to would be valuable. So that's just my 2 cents. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, Director Colburn. Any other first-time speakers? If not, I'll go to Director Abram for a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Please, Andy, mark this down. I would like to wholeheartedly concur with everything Director Adams said in his piece. That is what a regional growth plan was all about originally. I sat in on all the forums with Darlene Mazzari when she was our minister, and forums were set up in Richmond through UBCM, and I was there for all of them to create the regional growth strategy legislation. So, you know, it's not like I'm unfamiliar with this, and I supported it. And I still support the type of planning that would happen as Director Adams put forward. That is valuable, very valuable. And I think we really need to look at that. And, you know, even you could throw in talking about the infrastructure between, you know, areas D and Campbell River and A. You could talk about the ferry too, anytime you want. But I think that the other part, one part that's might be missing that you might want to consider looking at is those other regional districts that Dave says he's taken part in so many of them, is to talk with the directors, not the staff, but the directors of those areas, and ask them, how's it working? Is it working? Because that was the biggest complaint during the forums was—
Point of order, Mr. Chair. The motion is to do just that, which is to include for discussion in the financial plan. It's not about discussing it today. It's about sending it off to the financial plan and having those discussions. So could we please call a question?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. Mr. Chair, Director Cornfield was completely off base in interrupting me.
No.
I am talking about sending it off to be discussed. So
The motion is for discussion in the financial plan. That's the motion. So you're not sending it off to anywhere.
yeah,
Okay.
we're sending it off to the financial plan discussions. Of course we are.
That's right. That's the motion. Okay.
And that's what I'm in favor of.
Okay, I'm gonna call question on the motion. Anyone opposed?
Jeez.
Carried. Item 5, Uchekla Tribe Government Economic Strategy. Motion to receive the report from the CEO.
Move receipt.
Evans and Cornfield.
Just to say, Chair, that was super fast. I thought we were just voting on receipt there.
Yeah, we've went receipt 10 minutes ago. We're voting, discussion was on the motion.
Okay, well, I was opposed. I'd I'm the only one if you hadn't gone so fast, but do as you will.
Fine, we'll mark you down as opposed.
And you can mark Director Lee down as opposed to, because I thought we were voting on receipt.
Well, directors then, okay. Keep up with where the agenda is. We moved receipt a long time ago. The motion was moved and seconded. We had discussion on the motion. For the last 10 minutes, we were discussing the motion. When you call question, the question is on the motion. If you're opposed, say so. Thank you. Item number
It
5.
just doesn't hurt to read out the motion when it's been a long time.
On item number 5, we've moved the report, moved and seconded. I'll go to the CEO for
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair.
On receipt.
Move receipt.
It's already been moved.
Okay,
Question. Is anyone opposed? Carried. Item B, Chesterfield Regional District informed Island Coast Economic Trust Board that although we have supported the economic strategy, we do not favor bottled or bulk water endeavors since the resource that we cannot afford to be considered.
So moved.
Adams?
Second,
Evans?
Abram.
Any discussion? Director Adams?
Sorry.
Okay. No discussion? Question. Anyone opposed?
Moglove, I'm opposed.
Moglov's opposed. Motion is carried. Item 6, First Nation territorial acknowledgements. Receipt. Cornfield,
Receipt.
second. Adams, CO.
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair.
On receipt. I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item B, that the regional district investigate the use of First Nation territorial acknowledgements on official forms and other documents.
Second.
Sorry, I didn't get who moved B. Evans? Evans and Cornfield. Any discussion? Director Abram.
Yes, I have no problem with the concept of doing this, but I think that the practicality of it is going to be daunting to have all of the First Nations acknowledged, because if we're talking the general documents like our letterheads, business cards, et cetera, they're not going to have enough space on them to put all of the acknowledgements. And I think that, something simple along the lines of, acknowledge the First Nations territories within which we are acting, or whatever, something generic that would acknowledge that we are acknowledging First Nations, but we're not naming them all individually. I believe it's something like 15 in our area. I'm not sure if that's the right number, but it's going to be considerable on the, letterhead or business cards.
Okay, so Director Abram, there's a word in there that the regional district investigate. Not that we're putting it all on there. We want staff to investigate.
Okay, well, fine. Investigate it. That's
Super.
fine. I'm fine.
Go. Director Moglove.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was what I was going to say. We're investigating, not implementing.
Go. Director Cornfield.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm assuming staff would be doing the investigating, and could we have a cost associated with changes as part of the report?
Mr. Chair, we can do that. That's quite easily done. And just on Director Abrams' comment there, we certainly will not be the first regional district or local government to do this, and we won't be the first one that has multiple First Nations within our regional district or municipality. So it's already been done many, many times.
Go. And Director Jules.
Yes, thank you. A lot of what I was going to say has already been said. I mean, yeah, I'm sure it's as soon as we hear back from whoever is doing this investigating for these acknowledgements, the more the more I can comment on it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Jules. And Director Colburn.
Hi, I'm just hoping that through investigations, if this passes, that that staff would consider best practices of local governments, but also, I mean, there are large corporations that do this and do this really well. Things like using language groups and things like that. So I'm assuming that that's will come out of it. I'm just doing a check-in.
Okay, thank you. I've got a nod from the CEO. Okay, I don't see any further hands up, so I'll call question on the motion. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 7, Director Audit, Remuneration Expenses. Motion to see the report from the CEO.
Move receipt.
Adams and Evans. I'll go to the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the board has instructed that a director audit been done on remuneration and expenses. So it took a few liberties trying to unwind this ball of wool quickly and move on to things that the board may want to focus on. So I chose an 18-month audit period, of course, that could be longer or shorter, whatever the board's will, but I thought that was a reasonable amount of time given the window and COVID in there. So amongst that selection of time, there was only 6 of the 14 directors at the regional district that made any expense claim for meeting expenses. So there is, and of the 6, 5 of them only made expenses for board appointments. So it is rare that the regional district wouldn't have a link to a board appointment, whether they're conducted by staff attend, we have access to agendas, minutes, that kind of information. It was really easy to take 5 of the 6 directors and verify, validate their attendance and get agendas for that meeting. And so to narrow the scope of it, we started with that, and that leads us just with 1 director, to be honest with you, because all the appointments we have, again, easily validated. With Director Abram, there is a number of challenges we face. There is 3 groups that we kind of characterize these meetings in. One is board appointments. Next would be town halls allowed in the director's bylaw, and then the other ones would be senior staff and senior government officials. So for these purposes, the only thing staff looked at preliminary, because again, it was really easy to do for the rest of the directors, was look at board appointments. And I think with almost 1 exception, we had a lot of challenges with Director Abram trying to validate some of the appointments, and so we brought it forward to the board with looking for further direction on what the board would like to see done, because without further information or explanation from Director Abram, we are just not able to validate or conclude. Board appointments, I would say without exception or a rare exception, is that these meetings they're all virtual. Agendas are published, meetings are virtual, links are went out. It should be very easy for Director Abram to provide the regional district with links to those agendas and meeting minutes. They're all electronic. They reside on the computer. So again, looking from further direction from on the board what they would like to see.
Thank you, CEO. So on receipt, Director Abram.
Yes, thank you. In conversations with you, Mr. Chair, and with the Vice Chair, Director Moglove, over the weekend, I understood that we were going to move to option A of the report, which would allow me to provide me an opportunity to clarify all of the misinformation in the report that was provided to the public on the SRD website, to the directors and to the media on the website, and provide written proof of all of the meetings that have been claimed, which I absolutely can do. I was never asked by anybody, and I'm sure that you've seen it's kind of ironic, at the end of this agenda is a report for MAP and RMAC, which in Dave's report, it shows that those groups don't even exist anymore. Well, it's pretty hard to say they don't exist. Charlie's on the same ones with me, and he could verify I've been there. But the point is that the items that are listed in red in the listing of, I don't know, page 4, I think it starts. I don't have it open in front of me, but they're just absolutely incorrect. I have I'm sorry, I have one thing to say, Mr. Chair, if I could, and that is I have gotten a complete list from the coordinator of the MAP process, who coordinates all of these different marine area planning processes. It has a list of every single meeting and the attendance, and I am in attendance at every single one except one that Charlie knows why I missed it. And secondly, that all of the minutes and the reports for each of those meetings are all there, and they're all on their websites. So how could the CAO or whoever wrote this write that these do not exist, they do not have a presence on a website, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? That information, as I was told by you and Claire over the weekend, that we would just move to that next step, which was for the three of us to sit down and clarify the information. I'm the only one that can clarify it to you, and I can give it to you in writing, and you can have all of the details that you're asking for, which will clear this up. It will totally clear this up. So I hope we could just get to that and get away from these details, because these details are incorrect.
Okay, thank you. And I'll go to CEO.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm just going to clarify a couple of things that Director Abram has stated there, and I think has directly pointed to myself. The misinformation of the board, I can assure you, was extremely careful that the information you have before you in the detail is 100% accurate. The details of the meeting minutes and agendas are accessible on the website, and I can assure you, if they're not on the website, I outline that. So the MAP website is not difficult to find. The advisory committees, who's on them, is not hard to find. The agendas, the summaries of the meetings is also not hard to find. It's all there on the website, and the details you have here represent that.
Okay, thank you. Director Adams.
Thank you. And I don't want to get into at this discussion today. He said, she said, you said, I said. I'd rather just have it referred. And we're on receipt right now, and I understand that there is a subsequent that will be coming. But one of the things I do want to have the CAO, and if the subsequent does move ahead, is just the confirmation that when what is a meeting and what is just a conversation. When we are at UBCM, ABICC, FCM, or those types of things, we are covered under our base remuneration and also travel expense. And when you are then having sidebar meetings with other people, those are not eligible meeting expenses from my understanding. And so I'll leave that up to the CEO and the parties that will be involved to confirm that. Because if that's the case, I think all of us would have some expense claims that we would wish to submit for, going back for a period of time. So those are just my comments. I just want to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing here. Thank you.
Joe, Director Evans, and then Director Cornfield.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to say that subsequent has been provided to staff earlier on, and so that will happen after receipt.
Joe, Director Cornfield.
Thank you. Not wanting to get into the weeds too much, but for when I went down the list, the Ocean Protection Plan, OPP, for February 17th, 18th, and 19th, I can verify that Director Abram did participate in that. It was a virtual conference. There was over 400 plus attendees, and yeah, and I believe we reported back to both the SRD and the city. So there's three that I can confirm as participation.
Okay.
And there's others, I sent you information through to the CAO, to yourself, and to our, Mr. Yates, the, contact information for the, Marine Area Planning Partnership, the NVI stuff. Sometimes I think that there's some things lost in the, initials. For instance, it showed OPP on June 17th of 21, and I show it in my calendar as a North Vancouver Island Marine Planning Area year-end meeting. So it may just be, some of them are initials.
So further
Thank you.
investigation.
Thank
Okay.
you, Charlie.
Cool. And Director Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In Canada, we have laws that say that a person is innocent until proven guilty, not the other way around. And I believe that the board asked for an independent audit of this and not, you know, an internal committee and not a report from the CAO making accusations that things don't exist that do exist. We're going down the same path that we've gone down before, where, you know, the board is trying to prosecute somebody who's done nothing wrong, according to the bylaw. And I feel that the timing of it right before an election is suspect. I think that
Okay. No,
an independent audit should be pursued, and it'll take a while to do that, long after the next election. But, you know, I just don't understand why the CAO would wait for 2 years to report that he has qualms
Listen.
about these expenses.
Director Lee, it wasn't the CEO, it was, this all came from the SOFI report. It didn't come from the CEO, it come from the SOFI report.
What is a
This year's-
SOFI report?
This year's SOFI report.
What is a SOFI report?
The SOFI is a statement of financial information, and Director Lee, the resolution came from the board to do the audit, not myself.
Yeah, and I agree with an independent audit. I don't agree with a witch hunt. And
Okay,
I think that this is wrong to
Okay.
do this.
your words are, that's it. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up. On receipt, call questions.
had-
Anyone
I had-
opposed?
I had my hand up, Mr. Chair.
Have you got new business, Director Abram? I don't want to prolong this. We've got a process in place. Unless it's something new,
Well,
we're on
okay,
receipt.
I'll just leave it until we see what comes forward as a subsequent motion.
Thank you. On receipt. Gonna call question. Is anyone opposed?
I am
Yeah.
opposed.
I'm opposed.
Abrams opposed, Lee's opposed on receipt of the report. Motion's carried. Subsequent, Director Evans.
Yes, thank you. If we could just have staff put the subsequent up, please. And I'll read the subsequent, that a subcommittee of the board consisting of the board chair and vice chair be delegated with obtaining supporting documentation from directors that can allow the meeting claims to be properly evaluated, and that the committee bring back a report and other findings to the August 17th, 2022 regular meeting of the board.
Do I have a seconder?
Second,
Second,
Davis.
Director Cornfield.
And-
Anything
and-
further, Director Evans?
And just speaking to this, this is just to allow more time for information gathering. And as Director Abrams has already indicated, he's already been in discussion with the two individuals that are identified in this, and felt that that was a good way to move forward, to allow him the opportunity, again, just to continue the process of gathering documentation.
Thank you, Director Evans. I have Director Adams, Anderson, and Abram. Director Adams.
No, I'm sorry, I'll take my hand down.
Thank you. Director Anderson.
you. I'd like to hear perhaps a little bit more from the mover or seconder, why we would do this in-house. It seems like a potential real mess for us to be gathering information about ourselves, directors about other directors. I do believe the original motion passed last time was for independence, and I see that as being so much cleaner. So I'd like to hear why this approach is being suggested. It's certainly not what I would have imagined.
Thank you. Director Evans?
Yeah, I can speak to that, and thank you for that. Really, it's a matter of just timing, again, in consultation with Director Abrams, just an opportunity to gather that information. An independent audit may be another step if that was required, but at this point, really, it's just about giving an opportunity to clarify that information. You heard today, Director Cornfield brought forward some additional information. So it's really just timing. It's really an opportunity really being given for gathering that information. It didn't need to move beyond that right now.
Okay, thank you. So I've got Director Abram and Moglove. Director Abram.
Yes, thank you very much, Director Evans. That is exactly what I was hoping for and had talked to the chair and the vice chair about, and that was being able to provide the documentation without going to great expense and time and everything else when it all exists. It's all there, and it's completely available for the chair and the vice chair to make a determination as to where they want to go with it when they bring it back in a recommendation to the board. The only thing that I would ask is that where it says be delegated with obtaining supporting documentation from Director S, I'm assuming that's going to mean me.
Correct.
Okay, so as long as that's the understanding. And secondly, the timing of August 17th with the ministerial meetings may be a little bit tight. I'm not sure. I may be able to get them very quickly, but you know what it's like when you call a minister's office and you have to go through the gatekeepers. I can do that, no problem. I will do it. And I will make sure that I get it hopefully by the 17th. If I don't want to be punished for it. I just want you to know that I'm doing it. And lastly, on Director comments concerning meetings at UBCM. The only meetings that I claimed at UBCM were what our bylaw allows, and that is if we attend the meeting put on by UBCM per day, there's 5 days claimed. I attended 5 days. I didn't claim additional meetings with ministers on those days. Those are part of the meeting. That's part of the day. So I don't want anybody to think that, and I don't want anybody, on the website or on the media to think that I was double dipping here. This was not the case at all. If I went to a UBCM meeting, I claimed for UBCM meeting, as we are allowed 100% in our bylaw. We wrote the bylaw and we said that was what we were going to do. UBCM, FCM, AVICC. Everybody gets to do it.
Okay.
So
let's leave it there, Director Abram, and we'll go through the process.
fine. That's fine. I'm happy with that.
Super, thank you. Director Moglove?
Yeah, I don't have too much to add other than of the 3 options that are contained in the report, I was of the view and continue to be of the view that option A, which is basically what is on the table now or a variation thereof, really provides the most flexibility, and I think it's the fairest to Director Abram, and I think is also the fastest. I think some of this can be cleared up quite quickly. If there remains questions after the chair and the vice chair look at this, there may be further steps. but I think this is a prudent a prudent second step in this process. And I think that's sort of my rationale for supporting it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
I don't see any further hands up. I'm going to call question on the motion. Is anyone opposed? Motion's carried. Item 8, earthquake early warning project. Motion received.
Move receipt. Move receipt.
Lee and Cornfield. Anything to go, CO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to let the board know that these are funds that we have, a grant we received from NRCan and funds we have received from them. And in order to spend this money, they need to be part of the financial plan.
Cool. On receipt, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. And item B, the 2022-2026 financial plan capital expenditure program be amended to allocate 1.94 thousand. Moved by Cornfield, second by
Lee.
Lee, thank you. Any discussion? Director Cornfield?
Very quickly, just, thanks, good job, guys. That's a nice sized grant that's gonna provide a lot of, benefit and good, so well done.
Excellent as usual. Call question on the motion. Anyone opposed? Carried. On the bylaws, bylaw 446447, Oyster Bay Lands. Motion received the report.
Move receipt.
Second.
Lee and Wally and CO.
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair?
Cool. On receipt. Call questions. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item
Move
B.
B. Move B.
Director Lee.
That all records be received.
Second by Cornfield. Any discussion? Director Cornfield.
Just a question. I didn't find, there was significant number of written comments that were submitted, but I didn't see any sort of breakdown. Well, yeah, I didn't have the whole list of them, but not that I wanted 100 and some odd documents. But do we know how many were for or against
Go to staff.
of the full list?
Thank you. Through the chair to the director. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but approximately 164 submissions, 3 of those opposed. Additionally, petition in favor with 63 signatures in favor.
Okay, super, thank you. Yeah, I didn't need a whole lot of detail, just, it's nice to know what the numbers are.
Joe and Director Abram, do you have something on B?
Yeah, just one thing on what Director Cornfield just had to say. Yeah, we as electoral area directors have always been, since I became a director anyway, told that a public hearing is not a numbers game. And so, of course, we always look at, my God, there's overwhelming support or not support, but it's not how many are there, it's the quality of what's presented and the issues that are presented. So, we have to stick to that.
Okay, thank you. Don't see any further hands up. So on B, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item C, the bylaw 446 be given the third reading.
Move third.
Second.
Lee and Wally. Any discussion? See none, question. Anyone opposed? Electoral areas only. Motion's carried. Item D, bylaw 446 be Oyster Bay Buttle Lake Official Community Plan. Bylaw 1996 amendment number 22 be reconsidered, finally passed and adopted. Electoral areas only. Motion.
Move adoption.
Lee.
Second.
Wally. Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item E, bylaw 447 be given third reading.
Move third.
Second.
Lee and Wally. Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item F, bylaw 447 being Camel River Area Zoning Bylaw 1991, amendment number 60 be reconsidered, finally passed and adopted.
Move adoption of bylaw 447.
Lee?
Second.
Wally? Discussion, Director Abram?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make a note here to show that the planning process works. The people of Area D have spoken, and this is what they've said. And the electoral area directors have followed suit with what they had to say and have passed this bylaw. So it's now going to move to reality. Thank you.
Thank you. On that, call questions. Anyone opposed? Electoral areas only. Motion's carried. Bylaw 457, Oyster River Flood Protection Service. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Lee? Cornfield? Any to add, CO?
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair?
Thank you. On receipt, call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item B, bylaw 457 being Oyster River Flood Protection Service Establishment Bylaw 2022 be reconsidered, finally passed and adopted.
Move adoption.
Dr. Lee, Cornfield, any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item 3, bylaw 468, procedure bylaw amendments. Motion to receive the report.
So moved.
Cornfield, seconder. Wally, I think I heard. CO.
Yeah.
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair?
Thank you. On receipt. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item B, bylaw 468 being Regional Board Procedure Bylaw 2011, amendment number 10, be reconsidered, finally passed and adopted.
So moved.
Evans and Cornfield. Any discussion? Question? Anyone opposed? Carried. Item 4, bylaw 469, Cortez Island Solid Waste Rates. Motion to receive the report from the CEO.
Move receipt.
Anderson, seconder, Cornfield, and the CEO.
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair?
Okay, on receipt. Call question. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item B, bylaw 469 being a bylaw to impose rates and regulate use of Cortez Island solid waste and recycling materials collection system be now introduced and read for the first time.
So moved, Anderson.
Okay, Cornfield second. Any discussion? Seeing none, call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item C, rules be suspended, be given second and third reading.
Move C.
Okay. Cornfield second. Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. And item D, the bylaw 469 be reconsidered, finally passed and adopted.
So moved.
Anderson, Cornfield. Discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Correspondence. We have 2 items. Motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
Sorry, is 1 item. Greek Seafood Hatchery. Any discussion? This is kind of an open invitation for the board members to go through a tour on the hatchery. If you have time, I don't know if the board wants to try and set up a time for the board to go, or part of the board. I think in the letter was 15 people. I think they can accommodate. You know, something that has to be done tomorrow, but something maybe in the fall or whenever. If it can be done, I recommend it. It's unbelievable. It'd be nice to see. So, Director Evans.
Thank you, Chair. And I think that's a great suggestion to see if we couldn't coordinate something. I know it's a busy time for everyone, but sometimes if there is at least a date to work towards, it just makes it easier. So if that's something that staff would be able to identify and whoever can participate can participate. I think it's a great opportunity. When you spoke about it earlier, you just said it was an incredible experience and to see the technology and everything. I think that's a great opportunity. Thanks.
Could maybe a resolution after receipt?
Yeah.
Director Cornfield.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I didn't see anything in the news release that talked about an invitation to go for a visit. We got an
is that the-
invitation sent for the day of ribbon cutting, but I believe our council was in other meetings. And, yeah, so I didn't see that in here.
Sorry. It was an email I received from Greg asking that if the board would, or any board members would like to go, that they would set up a date. So, sorry, my apologies. It wasn't in the news release, it was after the news release. So anyways, so that's the thought of the day. So on receipt, I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Carried. And I don't know, would staff want a direction, Director Evans?
I was going to ask, is it just not direction to staff that that be arranged? Maybe we could just wait and hear from the.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, staff will look into that, thank you. Numbers report, MAP, RMAC, annual report. Motion to receive the report from Director Abram.
So moved.
Abram and Cornfield, anything to add, Director Abram?
Yeah, just want to say, there's two you can scratch off the list.
They weren't on the list, apparently.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. They happened afterwards.
Thank you. Any other
My fault.
discussion? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Management report, new business addendum item. Motion that the addendum item be considered.
So moved.
Director Lee, seconder.
Second.
Director Cornfield. I'll go to the CEO. Motion to receive the report from the CEO.
Move receipt.
Second.
Go. And I'll go CEO.
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair. The reason, though, that we put this on as a late item, it was we were available to release it on the 11th, so that's why we held it off the agenda and then just put it on as a late item on the 11th of July.
Go. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. And on item B, that Director Cornfield moves B. Second by Evans. Any discussion? Seeing none, call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. No close, there's no close today. Move termination.
Move termination.
Cornfield and Evans. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? Carried. Terminated.